All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this crisp fall morning, downright chilly. I am Jesse DeMumbrian Chapman. I'm the Executive Director and River Keeper at Coosa River Basin Initiative up here in Rome, Georgia. Today, I'm going to be serving as our moderator for this press briefing that is hosted by the Georgia Water Coalition, a consortium of over 285 organizations, businesses, and faith-based groups who are all working collectively to promote state water policy that ensures enough clean water for today and for future generations. We've already gone over some of our housekeeping. I'll remind everybody to keep your line muted, and we'll have time for questions at the end, and feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat, which will be moderated. And I want to get back to the reason why we're here today. We are unveiling our 2023 Clean 13 report. Hopefully everyone received a press release with the full list in your email this morning. If you did not, you can find that full report, the link to that full report on the Georgia Water Coalition website. And again, we have a number of our very talented and wonderful awardees on this Zoom this morning. So at the end, once we've gone through the presentation, we'll allow folks to ask questions rather, and I will help direct those questions at the folks that are best positioned to answer them. So we're going to jump right into it, and to help us release this edition of the Clean 13 report, we're joined by Rena Peck, Executive Director of Georgia River Network, and Joe Cook, who is the Paddle Georgia coordinator. He's a guidebook author with Georgia River Network, and he happens to be the author of this Clean 13 report. So Rena and Joe, y'all take us away.
Thank you, Jesse. It's always an exciting day when we get to talk about the Clean 13 and hear some of the great stories that I had the pleasure of learning about during the process of creating this report. So I'm really excited about telling everybody about those entities and individuals that are recognized in the report. And we are going to start down on the Georgia coast at St. Simon's Island. And that's where Andy Jones went from being an arborist and part-time Santa Claus to a citizen journalist. When the Golden Ray cargo ship capsized in St. Simon Sound in September of 2019, Jones went into action. For the next 2 years, he spent a part of every day documenting the disaster from his boat, the Menorcan Mullet. His effort grew into a YouTube channel with more than 11,000 followers and helped tell the untold story of the shipwreck's impact on the Sound and the surrounding beaches and marshes. Next up, we're going to stay on the Georgia coast. No, I take that back. We're going to go from the coast up to northwest Georgia and in my adopted hometown of Rome, where we are all very proud of Ball Corporation's nearby manufacturing facility, where the company makes aluminum cups and cans. Ball is attempting to displace the ubiquitous single-use plastic cups from the marketplace and replace them with infinitely recyclable aluminum drink cups. The company is betting on consumers' desire for more sustainable products and has set a lofty goal of seeing 90% of aluminum cans recycled worldwide. To that end, the company is investing not only in its new cup line, but also in aluminum recycling efforts around the globe. Next up, we're going down to South Georgia and Thomasville, where Representative Darlene Taylor, a Republican lawmaker there from Thomas County, has become the Georgia General Assembly's fiercest advocate for the protection of the Okefenokee Swamp As the largest blackwater wetland in North America faces the threat of a nearby heavy mineral sands mine, she has introduced a bill that would prohibit mining on portions of Trail Ridge, the sandy geological rise on the swamp's east flank that helps regulate water levels within the swamp. Backed by more than half of her fellow House members, she hopes the bill will win passage in the 2024 legislative session. I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague, Rena Peck, who's going to tell us about the next few honorees on this year's Clean 13 list. Rena, take it away.
Thank you, Joe. I've gotten to know our next honoree on Georgia River Network's many paddling trips around the state and his family. Since 1998, in his capacity with Georgia Department of Natural Resources Adopt a Stream program, Harold Harbert has studied Georgia's streams and trained his fellow Georgians to do the same. Each year, his team trains some 2,000 citizens to become watchdogs for streams in their backyard. Under his leadership since 2004, the number of Adopt a Stream health reports completed annually by volunteers has grown nearly 15-fold to more than 6,500 in 2022. His dedication to the state's volunteer water monitoring program has engaged citizens who in turn have helped identify and eliminate pollution problems. So congratulations, Harold. It's so fun working with you. Thank you. Next up is a shining example of how the federal Clean Water Act is supposed to work. Camden County and a host of partners work to eliminate pollution problems on Horsepen Creek and the St. Mary's River and restore popular swimming holes. High bacteria levels in the creek, first identified by stream monitoring in the late 1990s, led to an effort funded by the Clean Water Act monies that ultimately replaced 44 failing septic systems, educated the public on septic tank maintenance, and realized a 92% reduction in fecal bacteria levels in Horsepen Creek. While the folks in Camden County worked on the ground to fix a pollution problem, we also need individuals advocating for laws and policies to protect our water. Kathleen Bowen and the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia are the perfect example. For years, the budget writers in the Georgia General Assembly looted funds intended for environmental cleanups and redirected those funds to other parts of the state budget. It amounted to some $210 million over a couple of decades. For just as many years, Kathleen, with the ACCG, lobbied legislators to put the trust back in the state's environmental trust funds. The theft left hazardous waste sites polluting communities across the state and hampered local government's ability to develop solid waste and recycling solutions. During the 2023 legislative session, Bowen and her colleagues successfully finished what had become more than a decade-long lobbying effort to dedicate these funds for their intended purposes. Today, funds are flowing back to the state's solid waste and hazardous waste trust funds, and pollution problems are getting corrected. Congratulations, Kathleen. And Emily, please take me swimming at one of those swimming holes. Congratulations to you. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Rena. You've probably seen our next subject driving through South Georgia on I-75 or on some rural back road down in South Georgia. What we're talking about is massive solar installations that are cropping up like peaches and cotton all over Georgia. While these installations are transforming the state's energy grid, producing clean energy to combat climate change, they are also transforming the state's landscape. If sited in the wrong locations or developed inappropriately, their impacts to natural resources can be as significant as any other large land development project. Recognizing the need to minimize solar's impact to surrounding resources, a consortium of groups, from solar providers to environmental organizations, have come together to develop recommended practices for siting and developing utility-scale solar arrays. Appropriately, the group is named the Utility Scale Solar Siting Initiative. Next up on our list is my friend and paddling partner, Mark Wilson. I've spent many miles out on rivers with. For years, he lived in a Gwinnett County subdivision that borrowed its name from the nearby Yellow River. But like many of his fellow residents, he knew little about his neighborhood stream. That all changed when he ventured out on it in a kayak and then fell in love with it. Now, years later, Wilson's name is almost synonymous with the Yellow River. A leader in the effort to develop the Yellow River Water Trail, he organizes cleanups, conducts regular water testing, and leads paddle trips on the river, helping connect more citizens with this vital suburban Atlanta waterway. Okay, from Gwinnett County, let's leap back to Northwest Georgia, where during the past 5 years, nonprofit organizations and state and local agencies have worked cooperatively to secure funding to restore and protect the rare aquatic species of the Upper Coosa River Basin in Northwest Georgia. The intentional group effort has helped garner more than $4.5 million in investments, resulting in the stabilization of stream banks to prevent erosion, removal of culverts to reconnect habitat for fish, propagation and reintroduction of imperiled mussel species, and education programs targeting local schools. By collaborating rather than competing for limited funds, the partnership is saving the unique fish and mussels that make the Upper Coosa one of the country's most biologically diverse river systems. And next, here's one I really enjoyed learning about because I personally love learning about how utilities deal with what we flush down the toilet and wash down the drain. Georgia's oldest planned community, Peachtree City, is known for its sparkling lakes, rolling golf courses, and some 100 miles of recreational trails where golf carts are the preferred means of in-town travel. Beneath these notable amenities is a sewer system that, if not functioning properly, can ruin the idyllic setting. With that in mind, the Peachtree City Water and Sewerage Authority recently invested in a cellular-based monitoring system for its 200 miles of sewer lines and 36 pump stations. The investment has helped eliminate sewage spills and save the authority time and money by reducing electrical demand and eliminating overtime hours associated with monitoring and repairing faulty pump stations. Now back to Rena for our final 3 Clean 13.
All right, guys, I'll be honest, this one really stinks. Ugh. For years, county commissioners in rural Northeast Georgia have fielded complaints from constituents about foul-smelling fertilizers being applied to neighborhood farms. Upon investigation, the elected officials also learned that these fertilizers fell under the generously descriptive name of soil amendments. They're regulated by Georgia's Department of Agriculture, and that little could be done to remedy the smelly problem. But in 2022, a fish kill in Wilkes Creek caused by soil amendment runoff galvanized local leaders who banded together to lobby state legislators and the Department of Agriculture to amend their soil amendment oversight. Changes have been implemented, and now the local leaders of the Rural Georgia Protection Alliance remain cautiously optimistic. Thank you for your work. Next up is Congressman Sanford Bishop, a congressman since 1992 and a senior member of the House Appropriations Committee. Representative Bishop used his influence to secure millions of dollars in federal support to remedy 2 of the most pressing problems threatening the Flint River's ability to sustain Southwest Georgia's agriculture-based economy and continue to serve as a recreational mecca for residents and visitors. Overuse of the Floridan aquifer and pollution caused by Albany's aging and inadequate sewer system are the culprits. These appropriations aim to restore flows to Radium Springs, a gorgeous 70,000 gallon a minute spring that is known as one of Georgia's 7 natural wonders, and aid the city of Albany in eliminating sewage overflows into the Flint. Thank you, Congressman. Finally, on the Georgia coast in Liberty County, the Stevens family has stewarded some 10,000 acres of marsh, maritime, and upland forest since the mid-1900s. As the expansion of the Port of Savannah spawns a warehouse building boom along I-95 corridor, their preserved land stands as a bulwark against the tidal wave of warehouses with 430 acres set aside as a nature center for public use and the rest preserved as a living laboratory for scientists and researchers. The Stevens family hopes that the property can be used to show the value of unmolested land and inform future land use policies and decisions to better protect the highly productive but fragile coastal ecosystem. Thank you, Stevens family, for your marsh conservation. We now turn it back over to Jesse, who will moderate the rest of the press panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena and Joe, and thank you again for everyone for joining us this morning. The Clean 13 report is one of my favorite things that I get to work on at the Georgia Water Coalition. It is always so inspiring to hear about these awardees and the incredible work that they are doing across the state. And I hope that y'all don't just take our word for it, but go over to the Georgia Water Coalition's website and read the full report that has so much more details on all of these worthy awardees. But for the time being, I'll let you read that later, but we've got many of these folks on the call. So I'm going to open up the lines. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and I'll try and make sure that it's directed to the right person.
Hey, folks.
Harold,
Little dark.
congratulations.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say it's an honor to receive this award. I didn't know the Environmental Protection Division could receive an award like this, so I really appreciate it. And my management really appreciates it too. And it's fun to hear about all the other programs out there and all the great initiatives going on, and a lot of them that we partner with too, which is really neat to see. So thank you, Georgia
Awesome,
Water Coalition, Georgia River Network, and everybody, Joe and Jesse. Thanks, Rena.
I wonder if this is the first time EPD and Georgia Power are honored on the Clean 13.
Yep. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Kathleen Bowen. I just want to say thank y'all for documenting this information, because the issues that we're working on now are continuing, and the fact that you've documented this means that our future leaders can go back and read this, because for the example, the issue that myself and ACCG worked on, those fees are only dedicated until 2032. So the fact that you've documented this history is going to help refresh the memory of those that are going to work on this once we're gone. So I really appreciate y'all for documenting these issues and the history of the issues as well.
Kathleen, thank you for your work. Hopefully, we won't have to work so hard to get them rededicated when that time comes.
Hey, Joe and Rena, I really want to thank you for this honor. I certainly don't feel worthy of it, because I'm really just doing what I love to do, and testing streams and picking up litter and taking people down the Yellow River. I'm honored to receive it, and I appreciate it. And I'm retired now, so I get to do what I love with these nonprofits and the environment all I want. And so anyway, I appreciate it. I like the recognition. Thank you.
Thanks for
if there were a dozen,
and this is Georgia Water Coalition that recognized you. I didn't even know about it, Mark, so it wasn't me. But sure, I'm proud of you.
if there were a dozen Mark Wilsons in every county around the state, there would be no trash in our rivers and streams.
All right.
I do think that this year's Clean 13 shows a transition of Georgia Water Coalition's work over the years, and how we've gone from we're certainly still adversarial in many different ways on different issues, but there's been a maturity and a growth of working together that I think has shown greater impact. So if you look at the list, you have Georgia Power, you have EPD, these people that maybe traditionally might not have been viewed as friends. Yeah, I would argue EPD always should be, but I think what you're seeing is as years go on, the need to protect water is becoming more and more understood and accepted by different communities throughout Georgia, and that's super important because kind of can't live without it.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Tanya. Of course, one of the people that we're recognizing in the Clean 13 is Representative Darlene Taylor, who of course is a Republican legislator from Thomasville, and she's leading the fight to protect the Okefenokee Swamp. And her bill has had bipartisan support and strong bipartisan support. 96 fellow legislators have signed on as sponsors of the bill. And it harkens back to the early days of the environmental movement when in the late 60s and early 70s, the environmental movement was a clearly bipartisan effort. It was as many Republicans involved in passing the landmark environmental laws like the Clean Water Act, as many Republicans were involved in that as there were Democrats. I think Representative Taylor's work kind of harkens back to those early days of the environmental movement when it was a bipartisan issue, and it still is a bipartisan issue today.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
think her work speaks to that.
And the Republicans that have signed on consider themselves conservative, but conservationists, and those come from the same word. And she also passed the House resolution to protect the Okefenokee, recognize it for its value as a potential World Heritage Site, and then also promote it as an international tourism destination. And all of the House was a part of that. So now they've got a chance to do so and protect it with the Okefenokee Protection Act.
And good morning. My name is Christopher Drake from Congressman Sanford Bishop's office. We truly appreciate what you all do and what you've done, Mr. Wilson. And we will continue to do what we can from a federal level. I'm actually a local Albanian, love the Flint River, have had time to spend at the Radium Springs, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Sort of like just wow. So again, thank you for what you all do, and we'll continue to do what we do on our end to push for the protection of the environment and our rivers.
Hey y'all, this is Marissa. I'm with WABE, Atlanta's NPR station, but most of you probably know me from when I was with the Savannah Morning News as of a couple months ago. Congrats to everyone. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces, but I had a question for, I guess this could be for Mark or Harold, but it really could be for any of y'all, which is a lot of y'all have been working on these kind of like metro watersheds that have experienced a lot of change in the last couple of years. And so I'm curious, like, what has it been like doing this really consistent, water conservation monitoring over the years, as the areas around you have really changed and grown, but also been protected or not protected in all sorts of ways?
Okay, well, I'll say when I first went down the Yellow River, it was when my son was young in Scouts and learning how to paddle a canoe. And that's when we noticed that our neighborhood bordered a river and no one knew much about it. So myself and a couple of dads went down the river and found it was beautiful and that nobody knew it was there. They drive over it. So that's when I got involved. And over the years, the last 10 years of doing water testing every month, and as well as cleanups and whatnot, I'm seeing a lot more people get on the river. And it's more common now when you happen to be by the river to actually see a kayaker going down the stream. There's also a couple of really nice whitewater spots on the river for when the water is up, and people will come from counties around to paddle it. And I enjoy that too. So that's the message I'm trying to share with the county commissioners and so forth, is that they are very fortunate to have this river. It's clean and recreationally active, and they really should spend a little more time and money, I think, on some launches and some outreach and so forth, because it's going to be a much more popular river in the future of as counties do more redevelopment and build greenways and so forth. So I enjoy all the people I meet in this little hobby of mine. So my impression.
Mark, following up, what does your regular testing on the Yellow tell us about water quality in the Yellow River?
So it is always coming in as recreational quality. We are fortunate that we have one of the best water treatment plants in Gwinnett in Georgia, actually, just upstream from where I live. It puts water in the river that's cleaner than the river, and the river is already clean. It's portable quality. So and most people I talk to, A, drive over the river, don't even know it's there. B, if they do know what's there, they think, oh, I don't know about that river. I've heard things in the past, and I share the data with them, and and they're surprised. And if I ever get them on the river, they're hooked because it's really beautiful.
Thank
Harold,
you.
do you want to say anything?
I was just enjoying listening to Mark describe his personal experience. My perspective is a little bit different. I'm kind of like, I'm looking at it from the state level, I guess. So we work in Georgia, we work in Atlanta, and all over the state, and so it's just kind of interesting to hear. I mean, we work with Mark, we work with all sorts of different citizen organizations around the state. So it was kind of interesting to hear what your perspective was, Mark, because I'm not really on the ground there working. I will say that it's highly variable. My experience, at least, is programs come and go, and we can have a really successful program. Like we had an amazing water monitoring program in Peachtree City that did some incredible good work. It worked with the high school there and identified problems, issues, things like that, and did incredible outreach. That teacher moved on, and now the program is pretty much dissolved. So that's kind of the perspective that I bring to the program, that we try to build programs all around the state. We try to work with as many partners as we can, but we're not as engaged on the ground with the actual work that they're doing. I do compliment Georgia River Network and other organizations that are doing an incredible amount of work to get people out on the water, get people out paddling, and I think Paddle Georgia did an incredible job of kind of bringing that to the state. And the result has been that I've seen all these watershed organizations that are now kind of doing their own kind of mini paddle trips and things like that, which I agree with Mark, that people just they're not aware of what the resource is that they have in their backyard. You know, I mean, the South River, we just did a cleanup on the South River. It's a beautiful river. And most people never even thought about getting on the South River and paddling it. But I think all these watershed organizations are starting to do that, and I think that's a really good thing, because there is the water monitoring component, which we stress through our Adopt the Stream water monitoring program, but there is the just experience the waterway, whether you're on the coast in North Georgia, on a lake, or any place in the state.
Joe told me once that our rivers are getting cleaner, and I hope that's true. And then that the more we use our rivers, the more stewardship we have when we do clean them up, but that the more EPD has to pay attention to them for considering them upping the water quality standard to recreation level. Is that right, Harold?
I would agree with that overall. I would say the biggest threat is just our continuous growth, right? I mean, everywhere I look around Atlanta, I just can't believe it. If I don't go down a road, for 3 months,
Yeah.
I won't even recognize the road. because they just redeveloped it and built up. And all of that runoff just has a massive impact on our waterways. So I would agree, yep, it is continuing to improve, but we have a lot of challenges.
If I could here, I would like to thank the coalition for their my recognition for what went on with the Golden Ray, and I would, while I'm here, I'd like to thank some other organizations that I've developed some pretty close relationships with. Those being the Glen Environmental Coalition, the Altamaha Riverkeeper, and as well as 100 Miles. We all kind of began to network together when this colossal event happened here in our backyard, and it was really neat to kind of see the response there. I learned so much from my event. I had no idea what I was getting into when this thing got started down here on the Georgia coast, and I don't think really anybody who was there and watched the whole event unfold had any idea what was in the future when things got started. I will say that hopefully, if large section salvage of a cargo ship ever has to happen again in the coastal areas of this country, some people will go back and maybe look at what we were able to document and use that to really evaluate if that is the correct way to go for their particular incident. That's the one thing that I wish maybe would have done is people would have had a stronger understanding of what was going to unfold when they said they were going to cut a 655-foot ship into 8 pieces and transport it away with roughly 4,000 plus vehicles inside of it. It was quite an event. We're still feeling some of the effects from that. We're still having debris wash up on the beaches and in our creeks and our rivers, and we still don't know the long-term effects from what we experienced here with the Golden Ray accident.
Joe, if you'll permit me, this is Mike Worley with Georgia Wildlife Federation. I also want to say thanks to the Georgia Water Coalition for the recognition for this utility scale solar work that we've been doing. I was looking at the screen of participants here, and we've got a lot of folks that participated in this effort from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I see folks from the Nature Conservancy, but we had a broad array of folks from the utility industry, from the non NGO community, and also from the regulatory and agencies and environmental agencies that really came together, saw an issue arising, really a forward-looking group, and started thinking about ways that we can make this work better, make this utility scale solar work better for our environment, for some of our wildlife. So I really want to say thanks to you you all at the Water Coalition for the recognition, but I want to say thanks to the team that has worked together on this. I think one of the things you begin to hear is that we may be given recognition for individuals, we may be given recognition for specific work, but I think one of the themes I hear here is people working together can make a difference. And that's really what I've seen in our work with this solar initiative. When we're seeing nowadays solar installations that are clearing 3,000 or 4,000 acres at a time, it's a big deal, and we're helping them make better decisions on the ways that they do that work. So I want to say thanks to the folks that have joined from my group on this call, but thank you to the Water Coalition.
Does anybody else have a question that they would like to ask before we wrap up this press briefing?
I'll come in with one last one. I don't mean to monopolize y'all's time, but we're about to head into the legislative season, and I know I'm familiar with a lot of the work that y'all have been doing, y'all being different groups, but all collaboratively as well. And some of the people that we're celebrating here today have been people working on legislative kind of, over the last couple of years. And so I'm curious if anybody in particular has legislation that you're hoping will that you're curious on, working on, / going to be continuing into this next season, coming out of especially like an honor like this, of the great work y'all have been doing. So I'll open the floor for anybody on that one.
I'm sure Rena doesn't have anything to say about that.
I know, right?
Right. Well, certainly this sweet lady, Darlene Taylor, her bill is still live, and it has been heard in the House Natural Resource and Environment Committee, and it should come to a vote. I'm saying it should. I don't know if it will, but I think with encouragement of local constituents to representatives that are on the House Natural Resource and Environment Committee, that it can, and I expect it would pass, and then it would pass the floor, and then it would go to the Senate. And again, constituents across Georgia strongly oppose mining next to the Okefenokee Swamp because the Fish and Wildlife Service has said that they expect mining on Trail Ridge would impact wetlands in the swamp. So the portion of Trail Ridge next to the Okefenokee that would be retired from mining would protect the swamp and Trail Ridge as a wildlife corridor. Also, Trail Ridge has been named a sacred site by the chief of the Muskogee Nation, Chief David Hill, out of Oklahoma. So it's our biggest environmental issue in decades. I'm sure that people can talk about how it was a big deal during the DuPont era, and the job's not done yet, of protecting Okefenokee and Okefenokee's Trail Ridge. And so the legislature has a chance to retire that area from mining, just as the legislature did with the Coastal Marshlands Protection Act. And that's why we have such beautiful marshes and a protected coastline. So that will be coming up, and we encourage everyone in Georgia to contact their legislator to encourage them to learn more about it and pass House Bill 71.
Marissa, this is Mike Worley again. We've got some stuff that we're working on with, we've had a series of study committee meetings around the state this year, looking at specifically at fishing access on our state's freshwater resources. And I don't know if we'll see legislation, but it certainly is an issue that we're going to be working on with the General Assembly. Wouldn't surprise me if we didn't see additional legislation, but we had some in the last legislative session right on the last day that tried to clear up some of the issues associated with it. But that's an issue that impacts not just the 1.1 million people that are fishing license holders here in the state, but it also impacts all of us from the standpoint of our wildlife and natural resources are held in public trust. And so these issues affect all 11 million, almost 11 million Georgians now, if you look at it from an ownership and from an interest standpoint. And so yeah, I think that might be one that we'll be working on and facing as we go into the legislative session, in addition to House Bill 71 that Rena just mentioned. So those are two that jump out at me right now. There are probably others, and we always find ways to be surprised with what the legislature comes up with as well.
Well, and I'm not going to let it go past, Marissa, and not say anything about soil amendments. So we still have that would be weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
right. So we still, we're making headway, and people are being heard for the first time in 12 years about the growing need to make sure that we are managing the waste from our number one industry, which is agriculture. We still have transparency issues, and I expect that and hope that we'll be able to solve those in the coming year. But we still don't have a situation where the counties know what's going into their backyards, nor do we have the situation where we know who's legal and who's not. And so that still needs to be ironed out.
Thank you.
Well, I just
Thank you,
wanted to
Chair.
say,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna say thanks for the people who I love a little litmus test just to see what's on your mind. So I really appreciate y'all sharing.
I appreciate again everyone for joining us this morning for the release of this report. And for any further follow-up questions or more details, I will remind everybody that the contact information for all of our awardees can be found both on the slide deck for this release and in the full report. Both the slide deck and the full report can be found on the Georgia Water Coalition website. And kind of in parting, I want to just kind of highlight the intent and the impact of this report. I think that it's really easy to see Georgia Water Coalition's Dirty Dozen report as our call to action report, and the Clean 13 as a really kind of just sunny, happy report. And I would posit that the Clean 13 is a call to action report. Our goal is and has always been for the ideas and the goodwill and the partnerships that are wrapped up in this report to be duplicated, to be put out into the state of Georgia as best practices. The people that are in this report are doing truly remarkable things. And I hope that folks that are getting into these industries or working on similar issues can see how these partnerships and how these individuals function and replicate those tactics, those goals in their own hometowns to make the entire state's prospect for clean water moving forward a little bit brighter. So view the Clean 13 report as a call to action. We hope these ideas spread. I'm so incredibly grateful for everybody who took the time to show up this morning and for all of the amazing work that is encapsulated in this report. And with that, I will wish everybody a happy Wednesday and a happy November. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Jesse.